The sound comes before anything else. A mechanical thunder rolling down from the gray October clouds. Rhythmic, growing, unlike anything that has ever crossed this sky. 6,000 English soldiers look up. 25,000 French knights look up. Nobody moves. The horses stop. The drums stop. 75,000 men stand in silence on a muddy field in northern France and listen to something getting louder that has no name in any language they speak. Then it drops through the clouds at 200 feet, and the world changes. 63 feet of rotor span, 19,000 pounds of angular green steel, a nose full of sensors already sweeping the field. The AH-64 Apache banks hard over the French line at 150 miles an hour. The rotor wash flattens the grass. The horses go insane. It's October 25th, 1415. The Battle of Agincourt hasn't started yet. The English have 6,000 men, starving, sick, 3 days without food, 2 weeks of rain. Henry V stands at the front of his line, looking at odds of 4-1, the finest heavy cavalry in Europe, packed into a corridor between two forests, ready to ride his army into the mud. In real history, the longbowmen save him, barely. Today there's something else entirely. The Apache circles once over the French formation. The targeting system locks. 47 contacts, range 300 meters. So, does one helicopter end the most famous English victory in history before a single arrow flies? Or does a machine built for modern war find out that 1415 has problems it was never designed to solve? That's what we're finding out today. If you're new here, subscribe, hit the bell, and drop a like if you want more of this. Write in the comments what battle you want us to cover next. We read every single one. First, let's understand what just dropped out of those clouds. Because this isn't a bigger crossbow on a faster horse. This is a completely different species of warfare. The AH-64 Apache is 63 feet long. It weighs 19,000 pounds fully loaded and moves at 186 miles an hour. The fastest warhorse on this field gallops at 30 miles an hour for a few minutes before it tires. The Apache doesn't get tired. It doesn't sink in the mud. It flies. Now look at what it's carrying. The main weapon is the M230 chain gun, a 30mm cannon that fires 625 rounds per minute. Explosive shells that punch through light armor and detonate on impact. The gun follows the pilot's helmet. Wherever he looks, it points. The best weapon on this field is the English longbow. 200 yards effective range, 8 to 18 arrows per minute. Against full plate armor, it depends on the angle. The French knights know this. That's why they're not afraid of the archers. They should be afraid of the Apache. Under the stub wings, 16 Hellfire missiles. Laser-guided, fire and forget, designed to kill main battle tanks. A modern tank has composite armor 6 inches thick. A French knight wears steel plate 3 millimeters thick. A Hellfire that kills a 70-ton tank does not struggle with a man on a horse. The French knights are wearing tin. Then the Hydra 70 rockets. Salvos of 19 from each pod. 2 pods total. One trigger pull covers a kill zone 40 meters wide and 100 meters deep. One pass and a corridor of the battlefield stops existing. Now look at what the French are bringing. 25,000 men. 8,000 mounted knights in full plate. Trained since childhood for one thing, the charge. Get to contact, use weight and speed, win in the first 30 seconds. It has worked for 200 years. The problem is the ground. It rained the night before Agincourt. The field is freshly plowed farmland, soaked through to clay. Knights in full plate crossing waterlogged farmland arrive at the English line already exhausted, already ankle deep, already slow. In real history, the longbows do the rest. Today, the ground is the same. The mud is the same. The Apache doesn't care. It flies. But here's where it gets interesting. Because the Apache has a problem no amount of firepower solves. It came alone. No fuel truck, no ground crew, no base. 2 hours of combat flight at full power. Less if it's pushing hard, less if it's hovering low. 16 Hellfires, 76 Hydra rockets, 1,250 rounds for the chain gun. Against 25,000 men, that's not unlimited. That's a budget. And when the budget runs out, the Apache has to land. On a battlefield in 1415, with no fuel, no ammunition, no one to call. The most advanced attack helicopter ever built becomes a very expensive piece of stationary metal. And 25,000 soldiers, terrified, furious, know exactly where it landed. So the pilot already knows the answer. Make every round count. End this fast. Don't run dry. 6:45 a.m. The field is silent except for the horses. 25,000 French soldiers across 400 yards of mud. Knights in the front rank. Dismounted men-at-arms behind them, shoulder to shoulder. A wall of steel that stretches 100 yards wide between the two forests. The Apache holds at 300 feet, orbiting slowly over the French left flank. The TADS sweeps the formation. Knights, horses, packed infantry. Heat is heat. Mass is mass. It sees 25,000 targets and starts sorting by priority. The French commander d'Albret looks up, makes a decision. He orders the charge, not because he understands what he's looking at, because hesitation kills. He raises his hand. The drums start. 25,000 men begin moving across the mud. The Apache pilot doesn't hesitate either. 6:47 a.m. The first Hellfire launches. It covers 400 meters in under 2 seconds. The warhead finds the center of the French front rank. 3 horses lift off the ground. The knights on either side go down. A crater opens in the mud. The charge doesn't stop. 25,000 men with momentum don't stop for one explosion. The ranks behind press into the gap. The second Hellfire launches. Then the third. The Apache works center outward, systematic, methodical. Each missile hits a different section of the line. Each detonation opens a gap. Each gap fills immediately because the formation is so dense, there's nowhere else for the pressure to go. But the mud is doing something the pilot didn't account for. The French charge was already slow. Knights in full plate crossing waterlogged farmland, barely moving, already exhausted before they cover half the field. They're taking missile fire, watching horses go down. And they're still coming, not because they're brave, because they're packed so tightly the men in the back are still pushing. The front is dying. The middle has no choice but forward. 7 a.m. The 8th Hellfire expended. The Apache transitions to the chain gun, 625 rounds per minute. The M230 traverses across the French right flank, men-at-arms funneling between the tree line and the main formation, a column 4 men wide, hundreds deep. The pilot looks left. The gun follows. He holds the trigger for 3 seconds. The column stops from the front backward. 7:08 a.m. The French front rank reaches 200 yards from the English line. 3 Hellfires, 2 Hydra salvos, 4 chain gun bursts. Hundreds down. The left flank collapsed. The formation ragged, gaps everywhere. Still coming. Henry watches from the English line. Longbowmen knocked, stakes driven, waiting. He hasn't given the order. Why spend arrows when something else is spending ammunition? 7:12 a.m. The Apache rolls and makes a gun run down the length of the French line. Not across it, down it, nose to tail. 4 seconds of continuous fire cutting a furrow through 300 yards of packed infantry. Then the crossbowmen do something unexpected. Hundreds of bolts go up simultaneously toward the Apache. Not because crossbow bolts damage an attack helicopter. They can't. But one bolt strikes the tail rotor housing at a bad angle. Loud, sharp, felt through the pedals. Nothing critical. The helicopter keeps flying, but the pilot pulls up and checks his instruments for 30 seconds without firing. That's enough. The French left flank, survivors crawling along the northern tree line, using the forest as cover, breaks into a run toward the English line. Henry raises his hand. The longbows fire. The arrow storm comes down exactly on schedule, just with 2,000 targets instead of 25,000. The French left flank runs into it and stops. 7:19 a.m. Instruments check out. The pilot rolls back toward the field. The French center is 40 yards from the English line. 7:20 a.m. The French center hits the English line, not with the force of a cavalry charge, with the weight of a crowd. Thousands of men in full plate, exhausted, pushing forward because the men behind are still pushing. They can't swing, they can't raise their arms. The English billhooks find the gaps in their armor, and the French die standing up because there's no room to fall. The Apache can't help here. 2 formations locked together at 40 yards. No GPS, no IF, no ground controller painting targets. The targeting system sees heat signatures. It doesn't see uniforms. The pilot pulls up to 400 feet and holds. 7 Hellfires remaining. He doesn't fire a single one. He waits and looks for a target he can take cleanly. 7:26 a.m. He finds one. The French reserve, 3,000 mounted knights, sitting 800 yards back, watching the disaster unfold, completely separate from the melee, stationary, packed. The pilot rolls in. Hellfire 9, Hellfire 10, Hellfire 11. 3 missiles in 11 seconds into a stationary formation. The reserve comes apart. Horses scatter into the tree line. Knights throw themselves from their saddles to get away from the animals going down around them. The reserve that historically does nothing at Agincourt does nothing here either, just faster and burning. 7:31 a.m. The chain gun finds the French right flank. Men-at-arms circling wide toward the English line, trying to hit from the side. A smart move. In real history, it almost works. 6 seconds of fire. The right flank stops. The pilot checks his ammunition. 4 Hellfires. Roughly 400 chain gun rounds, less than 40 seconds of sustained fire. One more major engagement, maybe 2 smaller ones. 7:38 a.m. The French center collapses, not from above, but from the mud. Knights standing in waterlogged farmland for 20 minutes start sinking. The plate armor that protects them on dry ground becomes an anchor. Men go down and can't get up. English men-at-arms move through them with short weapons, daggers, mallets, finding gaps under visors, between plates. Henry's line holds, pushes back. The French center starts moving the wrong direction. 7:42 a.m. The pilot makes his last major decision, the eastern tree line. 300 French cavalry turning their horses toward the road back to camp. Fresh horses, messengers, word gets out. He rolls east, fires Hellfire 12, then 13. The road closes. 300 cavalry pull up, mill around, and make the same decision 10,000 men are making simultaneously across the field. The math doesn't work. It stopped working an hour ago. 7:49 a.m. The French army stops being an army. Knights throw down swords. Men-at-arms pull off helmets. The crossbowmen were already gone, moving east 20 minutes ago when the chain gun made its first pass. The Apache circles at 200 feet with 3 Hellfires. It doesn't need to fire. Henry V walks out from his line and looks up. He's a practical man. A military man. He spent 3 weeks calculating odds with bad options and worse options. Now he's looking at something that has no place in any calculation he's ever made. He crosses himself, turns to his herald. English dead, under 100. In real history, with nothing but 6,000 starving men and their longbows, Henry loses between 100 and 500. Already a miracle. The most lopsided victory of the medieval period. Today, the English line barely bled. 7:55 a.m. The Apache lands behind the English position. The fuel gauge has been in the red for 8 minutes. Rotors slow. Turbines wind down. The machine that just ended Agincourt in 70 minutes sits in a medieval field with 4 Hellfires it can never fire. Across the tree line, several thousand French soldiers, who ran early, are still running. They have horses. They have the road. They have something the Apache can no longer take from them. Time. So who wins? Henry V. Completely. In 70 minutes instead of a full day of dying. In real history, Agincourt is a miracle, forged from desperation. 6,000 starving men against 25,000. Longbowmen standing in the mud drawing until their fingers bled. Henry walking his line the night before, talking to his soldiers in the dark, knowing the odds. It becomes the defining story of English military history. Shakespeare writes it. Every English schoolchild knows the date. With the Apache, none of that story exists. D'Albret dies in the second Hellfire strike. The French reserve, 3,000 knights who historically survived to fight another day, burns on the ground before they move. Ulu Jali had 40 galleys at Lepanto. The French reserve has nowhere to run at Agincourt. Henry loses 60 men, maybe fewer. And that's where history cracks open. Agincourt in real history doesn't just win a battle, it wins a legend. The underdog story, the band of brothers, the speech, the miracle that gives Henry the political capital to negotiate the Treaty of Troy 5 years later, making him heir to the French throne. The victory works because it cost something, because it looked impossible. A 70-minute air assault witnessed by 50,000 people who have no language for what they saw doesn't produce a legend. It produces terror. The French survivors who reach Paris carry a story nobody believes. A metal demon from the sky. Knights turn to smoke. The chroniclers leave it out entirely. The alternative is sounding insane. Henry gets his victory. He doesn't get his myth. Without the myth, the Treaty of Troy looks different. The French nobility that historically capitulates after Agincourt now fears something it can't negotiate with. Fear and capitulation aren't the same thing. One produces a treaty, the other produces a crusade. The Apache sits in a field outside Agincourt with empty tanks and 4 Hellfires it can never fire. Henry's engineers pull off panels and find components that won't be invented for 500 years. The rotors become the most expensive wall decoration in English history. The most advanced weapon ever built saves Henry V, and then quietly rusts in a Norman field while historians argue for 600 years about whether it was real. 1 helicopter, 70 minutes, 16 Hellfires, 76 Hydra rockets, 1,250 cannon rounds. The French army never reached the English line with any force that mattered. So, does the Apache turn a legendary battle into something over before it starts? Yes, completely. But does it cost Henry the one thing a medieval king needs more than a victory? The story. What do you think? What if the Apache ran dry after the first Hellfire, and the French cavalry actually reached the English line? Could 6,000 exhausted men hold without air support? Drop your answer in the comments. Thanks for watching.